Now we're going to see some of the drawbacks of not using overriding, right? And we're also going to see the practical implementation of overriding where we actually going to use. And for that, let's say I'm going to talk about one of the automation tool that is Selenium, the API Selenium, right? So if I talk about Selenium, let's say the developers who have created classes in Selenium WebDriver, if there is no overriding being done, right, then how the classes, the architecture will actually going to look like. So let's say I create a new package over here, and I'll name it as overriding. Overriding. Right. And let's assume they have created a class called as WebDriver. Although WebDriver is an interface, but we haven't talked about interface at the moment. So I'm just creating a class with the name as WebDriver. Now, in case of WebDriver, let's say if you're automating a website using WebDriver, so you may be clicking on some buttons, you may be typing on some elements, right? You will be getting the title of the page, and you will be performing a number of other operations on your browser, right? Now, let's say if the methods are implemented inside this classes like public void click. Now, this should be a generic method. If I talk about clicking on a Chrome browser, may be different than a clicking on a Firefox browser, right? Their implementations could be different. Although the method definition, the name will gonna remain same. We are clicking on a Firefox browser as well. We are clicking on IE as well. We are clicking on Chrome as well. But the internal implementation could vary depending on how browser is actually performing click, how browser is actually taking the click functionality, right? It depends on browser to browser because browser itself is a compiler, right? So when you are like using this click method on a Firefox browser, the implementation could be different as compared to when you are using it on a Chrome browser, right? So for the time being, let's say the implementation is also same. I'll just gonna write over here, let's say uh, just give me a moment, performing click, and I'll write over here WebDriver, right? Same way for typing, they have changed the typing, instead of type it is known as send keys. So I'm gonna write over here typing in an element, and I'll name it as WebDriver. Similarly, I can say get title, getting the title, and I'll say WebDriver. So the same way they have implemented other functionality as well. Let's assume in the WebDriver class, right? And if I talk about the other browser classes, let's say the other browser classes we have is Firefox driver class, right? So over here, like it will actually gonna extend the functionality of WebDriver because if Firefox driver does not wants to override the method click, right? He may wants to use the same method from a parent class, so he actually needs to extend the WebDriver class over here like this. Same way, there could be a class called as Chrome driver where the parent class will be WebDriver itself. And same goes for IE, a class called as Internet Explorer driver. Right, and I all want to use the same functionality of clicking and typing that is available in the parent class. Now let's say I'm going to create a test case where we want to automate a website on Firefox. So I'll name it as test case 1, and I'll have a main method over here. Now in this test case, let's say as a tester, I want to automate my website using Firefox. So I'm gonna implement the class, I'm gonna call the class, create an object of Firefox driver over here, and with the help of inheritance, I'll say driver dot, let's say I want to click on an element, the method is click. I want to type on an element, the method is send keys. I want to get the title, the method is get title. Now, if I run this, this is a generic code which will actually gonna, let's assume, works on all the browser. So performing click, performing send keys, performing getting the title. If in case you want to run it on IE, you can again create an object of Internet Explorer driver equal to new Internet Explorer driver, and the same code will actually gonna work on IE as well, right? Right. So what we have seen is that the methods are being called is from the parent class because the child class does not have any implementation inside this class, right? Now it may happen that the click method, send keys method, these are the generic method. It may work on all the browsers or it may not work on all the browsers. Maybe this click is working fine for Chrome, but the implementation of Firefox is a little bit different. So this click might not work on Firefox. This click might not work on IE, right? So send keys might not work on Chrome or might not work on IE. So what these browsers, they want their own implementation to be done, right? And let's say they don't want to override this method, although inheritance is already there. If they implement the same method, then it will be overriding, right? They don't want to overriding and they want to create their own functionality. So maybe Firefox has created a method called as click on Firefox, right? Similarly, a method called as send keys on Firefox, right? Like this. Same way, these methods has to be there inside Chrome. So Chrome will gonna implement click on Chrome, send keys on Chrome. Right, we are not overriding it because the method name is different. And same thing goes for IE. Now let's say I'm automating a website and I'm testing everything on a Chrome browser or let's say IE browser, and if I want to click on IE, I'm gonna change this to click on IE, send keys on IE, and get title. Let me remove this. Okay, let's say get title is a generic method. So these methods are from IE. If I run this, you'll see, I mean, although we have not defined anything inside it, but the definition would be like clicking on IE, send keys on IE. And now let's say if we have methods all around like this, clicking on IE, send keys on IE, doing all the operations on IE, and now we want to run the same code on Chrome. So what we need to do, we need to change the class object over here, right? We'll be doing it like Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. Now look over here. If we have not done overriding, the issue that we will gonna face is that we need to change the entire methods in the code. So we need to change it to Chrome, send keys to Chrome, and if we have 1000 lines of code written as per IE, we need to completely change it to Chrome. Right. This is one of the drawback of not using overriding. Now, the other scenario that may come is that let's say we have 1000 lines of code written and we have changed everything as specific to Chrome. Right. This was the first issue. When we want to run it on IE, we need to do all the changes on IE. When we want to run it on Firefox, we need to again do all the changes in the code as per Firefox. Right. We need to call those methods, right, which are implemented in Firefox. The next issue, it may come that in case of Selenium, at times we need to do parallel execution. Parallel execution, as in at the same time, we want that the code should run on Chrome as well as it should run on Firefox and as well as it should run on IE. Then how will you decide that? You are creating an object of Chrome driver only, and the method that's being called is of Chrome driver only, right? So this code will only gonna run on Chrome. This code will not run on Firefox, will not gonna run on IE. We want the same code should be executed parallelly. If we don't do it in this way, we need to add a if else condition. If the browser is Chrome, execute this code. Again, we copy paste, change it to IE. And if the browser is IE, run it on IE. So same code, we need to repeat it 3 times. So there will be like if there is 1,000 lines of code, it will be 3,000 lines of code. 1,000 for IE, 1,000 for Firefox, 1,000 for Chrome. So this is another challenging issue that will gonna come across when we are not using overriding, right? So that is the reason we ask these browser classes if in case they want to give their own implementation, just keep the functionality same, the function name, the method name same. So it should be click over here. It should be click in Chrome driver instead of click on Chrome. The functionality remains same, just the implementation will be as per the browsers, right? So if you are in Chrome, if you write over here clicking in Chrome and typing in Chrome, same thing for Firefox, you do clicking in Firefox, same keys in Firefox, in IE, right? So whichever browser you're now working on, you need not to do any changes in the code. You just need to call the click method and the send keys method, right? And as per the inheritance tree, the child class method will be called first and then the parent class method. Right, so if the implementation, if the definition is not there inside the functionality is missing in the child class, then the parent class will be executed. Same thing if you do it for Firefox driver, there is no need to do any changes in the code. And if you run it, you're going to see everything will work in Firefox as well. So this is what the benefit of using overriding is. Now, another problem may arrive when we need to decide the browser on the runtime, right? Let's say if we choose Firefox, the code should run on Firefox. If we choose Chrome, the code should run on Chrome. Here we are hard coding the Firefox driver. We are only running it on Firefox. This thing we need to decide it on the runtime. Maybe upgrading some value from Notepad, and here the browser is written as Chrome. So if it is written as Chrome, the code should run on Chrome. If it is written as Firefox, it should run on Firefox. So how are we going to achieve it? So let's say normally in frameworks, how we actually do it, we create a base class, a class with the name as base, right? Now in this class, what we do, we create a method which will actually going to return us the browser. So let's say I created as public void get browser instance, and here we're going to accept the browser name. Now if the browser name is let's say if I write over here if browser name dot equals Firefox, if it is equals to Firefox, then it should actually gonna return the object of new Firefox driver, right? Return new Firefox driver. Let's see why. Okay, we have not defined any return type to this method. That's fine. We're gonna do it later on. So else if browser name dot equals Chrome, then it should create an object of, it should return new Chrome driver. Else if browser name dot equals IE, it should return new Internet Explorer driver. So what will be the return type of this method? If I write it Firefox driver, this will always gonna return me Firefox driver. This will not return Chrome driver or Internet. So we're gonna give some polymorphic reference over here, which is the parent class object. So we're gonna return it like this, web driver, so that there should not be any errors. Now we are getting the error at the method signature. This is because we are using if else if we need to add a else statement. So in else statement, what object should we return? Right now, by default, if nothing happens, I'm going to return an object of Firefox driver itself. Right, this is just a dummy architecture. Right, so this is a method which accepts the browser name and returns the object of that particular browser. Now let's say I'll again go to my test case one, and instead of writing a code like this inside a main method, what I'm gonna do, I'll just remove it from here, and I'll say public void initiate browser. Right, I'll code something like this, and I'll write this thing over here. Now what we need to do, we need to change this thing, right? We don't want the object of Firefox driver to create it like this, so I'll just gonna remove it from here, and I'll gonna declare the browser name variable as Firefox over here. Now if the browser is Firefox, the code should run on Firefox. If it is it should run on IE. So what we're gonna do are all our test cases will actually going to extend the base class, right? This is how we going to do in framework as well. So all the test cases will extend the base implementation. So what happens when we extend the base implementation, I should be able to call this method that is get browser instance over here, and I can pass the browser name. Browser name as in whatever browser name that we are giving over here, I can pass on the browser name over here. Right. This will actually gonna return me the WebDriver reference itself. So we're gonna say WebDriver equal to this. And from the same instance, we will be getting the browser name. Now, whenever you call this init browser over here, how you're gonna call it? You're gonna create an object of test case one tc equal to new test case one, and then you say tc dot init browser, and if you run this, you're gonna see everything will work on Firefox. If I change this to Chrome and run this, you'll see everything will start working on Chrome browser. So this is possible with the help of that polymorphic reference, right, that we have created, and with the help of overriding. If we don't do overriding, then this thing might not be feasible. On the runtime, we will not be able to switch the objects to different browser instance. Right, that is what the benefit of using overriding, or this is also called as a runtime polymorphism, late binding, right? Right, and again another thing, if you are using overriding and if you are not using polymorphic reference, then again it won't work, because instead of this WebDriver, if you write Firefox driver over here, then the methods will only gonna work for Firefox, will not work for Chrome, right? So both things are interrelated, right? The polymorphic reference and the overriding, both things are interrelated. So you need to create a polymorphic reference instead of just creating the object of the child class, right? So this is the importance of the polymorphic reference as well. So with this polymorphic reference, whatever browser name you're going to give, the corresponding object of that class will be created. So this is one of the scenario, right? Now let's see what all other like challenges that we can face when we are working on overriding or polymorphic references. Let's say I create one more class. Let's say there's a parent class. I name it as parent itself, and there is a child class. There is a class with the name child, right? Now both parent and child class contains a method called as, let's say there's a method called as show over here. There's a method in the child called as show over here, right? There's one more method inside this class called as display in the child class. And let's say in the main method, I want to call these methods. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create an object of child c equal to new child. And if I call the method c dot show, it will be called from the child class only, right? I mean, in order to make a child and parent relationship, I'm gonna extend the parent class over here. Now we have show method in parent, we have show method in child. I can call c dot show and c dot show is coming from child, you can see, and c dot display is also coming from child. I can call both the methods, right? Instead of this, we have just changed the polymorphic reference, so I can change it to the parent as well. So I can say parent c equal to this. Now if I change this to parent, you can see only I am able to access the methods which are common in parent and child both classes, right? I'm not able to access the method which is just there in the child class if I use this polymorphic reference. So this is what you need to remember. Whenever you are creating a polymorphic reference, you should be only able to call the methods which are common inside the parent class as well as the child class. Right, the parent class may have more methods over here. We can create a new method called as add. We can create a method like add over here, and when you say c dot, you should be able to call the add method. So this add method is not there in the child class, but if you have like methods inside child class, if these methods are not defined in parent class, and if you are extending the parent class over here with this polymorphic reference of parent, you'll not be able to call these methods. So that is the reason in parent we generally declare all the methods and then we override those methods inside the child class. Right. So while overriding, you need to make sure about these things if you come across any such issues. Now, there's an interview question a question something that says, can we reduce or can we change the excess modifier when overriding? Right. Can we change the access modifiers as in we are overriding the method show over here and we are overriding it in the child class? Can I change the access modifier of this child class? The answer to this is yes, I can. Yes, I can, but I cannot reduce the visibility. Now, do you remember the visibility metrics that we were actually discussing at the time when we were discussing the access modifiers? If you have not gone through that lecture, just go through it, right? So there are a couple of access modifiers like public, protected, private, default, right? Now, if the parent class functionality is public, I cannot change it to private or to default. It will gonna throw an error. If you mouse over onto this, it will gonna say cannot reduce the visibility of inherited method from parent, right? So if it is same, it's well and good. But let's say if I change this to default. Now, what all access modifiers I can use over here? See, I can use public, there is no error. I can use default, right? Again, there is no error. I can change it to protected. Again, there is no error. But I cannot make it private. And you can see this time it is throwing the same error. Cannot reduce the visibility of inherited method. So just remember these things, right? These are at times being asked in interviews as well, right? So these two are very important question. The most important question is the return type, right? And then we have access modifiers. So just remember these things. Okay, one more important interview question related to overriding. Can we override static methods? And the answer to this is no. Let me show you with the help of example. Let's say this is a parent class. I'll create a method public static void add, right? And I'm saying add from the parent class. Same method, I'll override it. I'll write it over here as well. Public static void add, right? And I'll say add from the child class, like this. Right. Now, if I call this method add, I'll say c dot add. From which class the method will be called? As per the concept of inheritance, the inheritance tree, the method should be called from the child class itself. So let's run it. See, it's being called from the parent class. Right, because we have created a polymorphic reference of the parent class. If I change this to child class, this will now be called from the child class. This is also called as method hiding, right? Something you can study over the internet related to method hiding. Now, what exactly happening over here is this is a static method. How static methods are called? By class name dot the method name. Directly we can call them, right? Now over here, if you see the reference, if I change this to parent, the polymorphic reference is of the parent class, right? So we are actually saying parent class dot the add method. If I run this, it actually gonna call the functionality of a parent class, right? That is how static methods are actually in nature. I mean, we call them without creating object of a class. So here we have actually created a polymorphic reference. It is not calling the method from this object. It is actually class name dot the method name. This is how it's being called actually, right? So you can say static method add from the type parent should be accessed in a static way itself. So it means that we cannot override static method.